Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today we're looking at this. It's the vintage V120 by Vintage Guitars, and I'm guessing all of you watching the channel today will already be familiar with Vintage. They're one of the world's most popular and well-respected affordable guitar brands, and they build electrics and acoustics, some of them in original designs and some of them paying homage to some of the more iconic classic instruments of every genre going. And the V120 is obviously one of those homage sort of models. So the company Vintage has been going for over 25 years now, and the company that owns Vintage is a UK-based company called John Hornby Skews, and they date back to the mid-60s, so they have a whole lot of experience in the guitar and music industries. Now, Trevor Wilkinson, the world-famous designer, worked with Vintage as a designer and consultant for many of the years that the brand was around, and he helped and in fact designed this specific model, and he put Wilkinson hardware into most of the Vintage instruments too. So we've got Wilkinson hardware all over this one, the V120, so we can already expect top value for money. So let's talk about the specifications a little bit before we hear some sounds. So the V120 has a mahogany body, and in this example it's finished in a lovely two-tone vintage Sunburst. We've got a one-piece mahogany neck, and before I move on, let me tell you about that neck profile. Now, Vintage refer to it as a soft C, and it is a soft C, and it's very comfortable indeed, but it is massive. This is one of the chunkiest necks I've ever played, and in fact the guy who owns this guitar, a good friend of mine, gave it to me for this demo. In fact, he bought it because he loves chunky necks, and this one is huge. So if you like big necks, you will absolutely dig this one, but if you prefer slimmer ones, you might want to try this and you might decide it's a little bit too much for you. I'll leave that decision up to you. For me, it took a little bit of time getting used to, as I normally play slightly slimmer necks than this one, but now I've got used to it, I really enjoy it. And of course, one advantage of having a bigger neck is more wood equals more sustain. And if I just ring the guitar out acoustically now, hopefully you can hear that comes across on the mic. It's so loud and resonant acoustically, I'm sure that's going to transfer some of the energy and resonance to the plugged-in playing that we do later. So at the front of the neck we've got 22 medium jumbo frets on a Lignum Rosa fingerboard. Now, Lignum Rosa is a wood that Vintage started using from 2017 onwards to counteract CITES regulations. CITES, of course, is the Convention for the International Trade of Endangered Species, and that basically started to affect the guitar industry as of about 2017 and made it much more difficult for companies to internationally transport woods like rosewood and ebony. And Trev Wilkinson went and checked a number of alternatives to rosewood and went with Lignum Rosa, as it has similar looks, as you can see, and as he says, similar tonal properties to rosewood. So the board is Lignum Rosa. Just coming up to the headstock end, we've got a Graphtec Nubo nut, which measures 43 millimeters across. Flipping over to the back of the headstock, we've got Wilkinson Deluxe tuners in a vintage style. You can see that the back of the neck and the back of the body are painted in black, and we've got a nice, very accessible cutaway here on the back of the body. I hope you can see that. Much more kind of innovative than the traditional single cut cutaway would be there, and affords you much better access to those upper frets. Down at the body then we've got a Wilkinson dog ear black covered P90 pickup with a single volume and tone control. We've got a Wilkinson fixed compensating bridge there. You plug your guitar in there and then you make a lot of noise. So this junior style of instrument was built to be originally a student's model. It was simple and affordable, and therefore in the realms of possibility for students to buy back in the 50s. And we've retained much of the vibe here. It's a very simple instrument. You can't be hiding behind different pickups and different sounds. You've got the volume and tone control, and that's all there is. So it should be an awful lot of fun to play. I'm a big fan of junior style models. If you have seen my channel, you'll know that already. So let's plug it in and hear how this thing sounds. My rig today is going to be my Hughes & Kettner Black Spirit 200 head. I'll use the clean channel, the crunch channel, and the lead channel for various amounts of dirt. And at the end, for the metal part, we'll tune down to drop D, and I'll go to the amp's clean channel and engage the Rev G3 distortion pedal and do my attempt at some modern metal madness. But enough talk, let's play the vintage V120 now, and we'll talk about it more afterwards. Okay then, so that was the vintage V120 by Vintage Guitars, and I hope you enjoyed the tones I just got to make. I had a lot of fun making this video, and if you watch my channel regularly, you'll know that I tend to go through phases with things that I like, be it guitar types, or pedals, or amps, or even sounds. And this is no exception, because I've had a bunch of single P90 equipped guitars on Rich Words music recently, some of them in single cut and some of them in double cut formats, but the pickup was the thing that unites them, and the vintage V120 can really hack it with the best of them, especially for the price. But let me go through the different facets of the guitar and tell you my opinions on it then. So we'll start with the build quality, and for the price that you pay, I think that you can't really fault the V120 in any way whatsoever for the quality. I would start up at the neck, because that's key to kind of making sure that you can enjoy the instrument if it's well built, and the things that are crucial here are the tuners and the nut and the frets. Now, the Graphtec new bone nut has been well cut, and in combination with the Wilkinson Deluxe tuners, they kept the guitar in tune excellently throughout the time that I've had it. I've hardly had to retune at all, so full marks there. The frets themselves are nice and smooth, no rough edges, they've been well leveled. The guitar and the neck plays really, really well, no intonation issues, so full marks there too. Moving to the rest of the guitar, and you've got the Wilkinson hardware, and as I expected, that is affordable but great quality and did its job admirably throughout the time that I've played the guitar. There's no other blemishes or anything like that, build issues, QC control issues that I could notice. It all seems to be very good indeed. Now, the one specific thing that I want to talk about otherwise with the build quality is the Lignum Rosa fingerboard. This is actually my first time playing Lignum Rosa as a alternative to rosewood, and I actually am very impressed with it. Now, many guitarists I think were kind of disappointed when brands stopped using rosewood and ebony for a time and started replacing it with the likes of Pau Ferro, Indian Laurel, and other kind of random miscellaneous woods masquerading as rosewood and ebony. But Lignum Rosa is one of my favorites, and in fact it might be my favorite of the non-rosewood rosewoods that I've tried up to this point. As I said in the intro, Trev Wilkinson picked it because its tonal properties and its look were as similar to rosewood as he could find, and you should be able to see it from here that it's a nice dark coloured wood. It's got quite a nice pattern to it, especially up at the top of the fingerboard there. I hope you can see that. And it feels really good too. Now, this guitar is very new, it's basically straight from the factory, and there's no dryness to the Lignum Rosa board or anything like that. It's easy to bend, it feels like rosewood, it looks like rosewood, and it plays pretty much like rosewood. So if you're kind of skeptical about having different third-party woods on your guitar, then I think you shouldn't be scared of Lignum Rosa. I'm a fan of it after playing this guitar, and I'll be looking out once I get to go to music stores again to try some other guitars with Lignum Rosa on it to see if the wood itself is good across the board or if I've just been lucky and I've got a good example here. But anyway, build quality front, full marks to the V120. Now, when it comes to playability, the main issue for most people is going to be how comfortable and easy to play the neck is. And the make or break factor of the vintage V120 is going to be the massive, fat, C-shaped neck profile that we've got going on here. Now, I normally play standard to slightly thicker necks. I don't play any shredder sort of necks like the Ibanez Wizard profile or anything like that. But this one, for me, was massive. It took a bit for me to get used to, but once I did, I really found it comfortable. Once I kind of got my hand around it and could make that classic rock A chord, it really kind of felt rock and roll and iconic, and now I love it, but it took me some time. And I would say that if you're someone who likes to play thinner necks normally and you feel that baseball bat necks are something you're not going to get on with, really try and test this one out in person if you can before you buy it online, because it might be something that stops you enjoying the guitar. If your hands are physically too small to get round it and make the most of it, then this is not going to be the guitar for you, so you might want to look elsewhere. When it comes to the rest of the instrument and the rest of the playability, no issues whatsoever. You can actually see from how I'm holding it, and if I turn it over here, you've got this nice heel joint there that affords you better access to the upper frets. If that's your thing, not an issue for me of course, but if that's what you want to do, you'll have no problems reaching the 22nd fret and bending up for a double octave if that's what you want to do. The rest of the playability factor is of course the Wilkinson hardware, all good. Everything stayed in tune fine, the volume and tone controls did their thing, no problems, no crackles, playability absolutely spot on. Now let's talk about the sounds of the guitar then, because that's another really important factor, of course. And again, I'm floored at how versatile and how great a simple P90 pickup sounds for so many different styles of music, so many different genres, from clean to crunch to classic rock to indie to pop punk and alternative rock and even metal. This Wilkinson P90 kept up with it all and did an excellent job. Okay, when we got to the drop D stuff and the metal with the Rev G3 pedal, it was not at home anymore. Of course, a P90 is not really at home playing modern metal, but for everything else, it absolutely excelled, and it did that P90 thing which I absolutely am in love with at the moment. It has that wonderful mid-range honk, it's bright and cutting. I can imagine it would sit well in any mix, in any live band, and for classic rock and indie, it has such a biting clarity. It's just such a joy to play, and it feels great under the fingers as well. I'm a huge fan of P90 pickups, and if you think that you're not sure whether this is going to do the job for you, if you want to play a bunch of different sounds, and you normally play a Strat or a Tele or maybe even a standard 2 humbucker Les Paul, then don't worry about it. A P90 is really going to do the job, and it's going to be a different string in your bow as well. You might just have one volume and one tone control, but as you'll have heard from the sound demos that I just did, you can do so much with a P90 pickup, and the Wilkinson sounds great. So full marks there for the sounds, and again with the versatility. You wouldn't think it from a junior type guitar, would you? But it can do so much that I would heartily recommend it to anybody who is looking for a different flavor of instrument, or who is just looking for a simple workhorse that they can plug in and just go with. Because that's what the V120 and these junior models are. There's no messing around with them. There's no hiding behind complicated wiring or pickup selections. You plug it in, you turn on, you find your sound, and you go. And it's so much fun to play. It inspired me a lot. I was playing it for hours when I got it straight away, and I would heartily recommend this guitar to anyone. The one big issue with it, the one big caveat, if you will, is the fact that it has this massive neck. If you don't like that, it's not going to be for you, but if you can handle it, or if you dig a baseball bat, then you are absolutely going to love this guitar. So that's been the vintage V120 by Vintage Guitars then. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, and if you enjoy similar videos about this and other kinds of gear, about guitars and pedals and amps and chats with people from the industry, please subscribe to the Rich Words music channel, because I have plenty of good videos there already, and there should be plenty of even better ones coming, fingers crossed, for the rest of 2021 and beyond. But that's it for today's video. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.